Okay, hey everybody. So today is the first day of our Elroy Shawl knit along. So I printed my pattern, which I almost forgot to do, but I printed it. And I have my yarn wound. And I also have my needles ready. So, you know, that's a lot of what I need right now. And before we fully get into Elroy, I want to make sure that I somehow figure out how to make sure that I'm getting the comments, because again, I don't see them on my phone, so I have to have my tablet up. I used to see them on my phone and they would come up and I could respond and it was great. And now, I don't know, man. Now they've just disappeared on me. So, all right. Have my live view up so I can make sure I'm watching for my comments. Just in case somebody wants to say hi or, you know, has a question. Let's see. I'll set it right there. Okay. So a few cleanup things. I washed all of the socks from the Shawl KAL. So they are all done and all the ends have been trimmed. No hanging tails. And that's how they look, all nice and happy now that they've had a little wash. And I did send them through my washing machine just on a delicate cycle. I hung them to dry. Just hanging out. And it's a hot day, so I've moved back into my little book corner here in my bedroom again because it's too hot for me to sit outside. And then here is my cute little pair of Ina socks, little toddler socks. I don't know if I can call them baby socks. She's 19 months old and, well, they're toddler socks. Anyway, cute little pair, right? Cute little pair. So they're all done, and I am still working on the other pair. So I have these, I think, ready to go through. This is my second sock. So I'm in the gusset area and I'm decreasing down. And remember, when I store my socks on my double pointed needles, and even if you were using something like socks on 2 circs or the Addy Flexi Flips or the Hiya Flyers, I always fold my needles together so they make a tight little bundle, and I kind of push all of my stitches to the center, and then I take my excess needle and I push it through, and I make sure that that holds my socks securely so they don't fall off. So that's what I do. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you the socks now that they were all washed and ready to go. And I'll be shipping them off to their new homes very soon because I'm doing Christmas in July this year for a lot of people because I already have their things done. And I feel like it because it's just been, it's been a year. So I think Christmas in July sounds like a fabulous thing to celebrate. Feel free to get yourself a little something from the BlackSheep website. If you missed Tina's post, she has moved into her new place and she's going to start taking appointments and having occasional groups on the back patio, socially distanced groups. And anyway, we're having a big sale, lots of clearance yarn. She's talked about that, lots of clearance yarn that's going to be available. And oh, we have some books on sale, and yeah, just there's so much going on. There's so much going on, but I bought a bunch of stuff and it's kind of in the mail, so now we need to sell some things to make room for the new stuff. It happens, but it was handmaiden. Couldn't resist the handmaiden. Okay, so if you are here and you are ready to start your Elroy Shawl knit along, or even if you are getting ready to start a shawl, there are always some good things to do. One of them is either print your pattern or make sure you have your pattern available. PDF, totally fine. Some people like to use a knitting app so they can keep track of where they are in the pattern. That's nice. Make sure that you have wound your yarn. That's always important. You should also have checked out your pattern and made sure that you have some important things. So with my Elroy shawl and with most patterns, you'll find the yarn listed. So here I called for 2 skeins of Teresa Ruche Designs 5/2 tencel, 520 yards, 100% tencel in Elroy green. But you don't have to use the yarn that's listed. The most important piece of information is the yardage and the weight for the yarn. Yardage and weight. So we know that the Teresa Ruche Designs 5/2 is approximately a heavy lace or a very light fingering. So that means that if I want to remake this, I can probably take it lace weight or I can take it fingering weight. And it used 520 yards, 2 skeins at 520 yards. But I didn't use the full 2 skeins on this. I used somewhere around like 700 yards. So I actually picked out a skein of my lovely Handmaiden. And hang on, I always put my label in the center of my ball when I wind it. So I am using Handmaiden, and this is sea lace. It's 70% silk, 30% sea cell, and 775 meters, which is almost 850 yards. It's like 848 yards. It's almost 850 yards. So I have more than enough yarn to make the project listed, even though it's a different yarn and a different amount, because I didn't use the full amount. So when you are checking out your projects and you're trying to decide on what you want to knit and you're looking at your pattern, the 2 most important pieces of information in terms of your yarn are your yardage and the weight. Because you can substitute a lot of different yarns just based on the yardage and the weight. Now there are other considerations like fiber. So this one I used tencel, has great drape. I'm using silk and sea cell. Similar idea, great drape. I could also make this in a wool. I could use wool for this. You could use linen. It would be gorgeous in a lace weight linen. But the most important part really is just making sure that you have enough yarn, yardage, and that your weights match. And after that, it doesn't matter as much. It doesn't matter that I use 2 balls of the Teresa Ruche. I'm going to use 1 of the Handmaiden. It's really the yardage and the weight that matters most. So you can substitute a lot of different yarns in patterns just by looking at those 2 things. Now the next thing that we need to look at is the needle. I called for a US 4 needle for this, and that makes sense because we want our lace to be a little more open. If I were doing socks, I definitely wouldn't be using a US 4 unless I was using something like a light worsted or at least a DK weight, because we want to make sure that we have the appropriate fabric and texture and drape for our project. So this calls for US 4 needles, and I actually swatched with the 4s because I thought that it would look good with the lace weight Handmaiden sea lace. And I like it. I like what I got on my size 4 swatch. And I didn't do much. I just cast on 20 stitches. And I didn't do a full proper swatch for this one. I only cast on the 20 stitches. I knit somewhere around 1 inch, and I measured just, I did a real quick stitches per inch, rows per inch, just to see what I was getting. And my pattern calls for about 5.5 stitches per inch. I'm getting 6. And it called for about 8 rows per inch, and I am getting 8 rows per inch. And once this blocks, that'll open up and be a little bit softer, so I will probably be closer to that 5.5 stitches per inch. And I'll probably be at a little more than, or a little less than 8 rows per inch. I'll be at like 7.5 probably. Because this silk and sea cell is going to open up quite a bit once I hit it with water and I block my shawl. But I really like the fabric that I'm getting on my size 4 needles, and I am using my signatures. Remember, it's important to swatch with the needles that you plan to use for your project. Super important. Now, if I want to, I can make my shawl longer because I have more yardage than what I used in the pattern, but I may not because a 66-inch long and 18-inch wide pattern is pretty big. especially for a nice filmy shawl that wraps around your shoulders. And looks like I don't have any comments yet. I am trying to pay attention to that. So if you have comments or a question, then go ahead and write it down. Some important things for this pattern when you go to look at it are there's really only 24 rows, and you're going to repeat that 18 times. There is a tiny garter stitch edge on each end, just 4 rows. And there's a chart that uses, hang on, short rows. Oof, that word, that wasn't coming. Short rows where you wrap and turn. And when I wrapped and turned for this one, I didn't bother to pick up the wrap and knit it together. But there are many different ways of doing short rows. So if you are more comfortable picking that wrap up and knitting it together, that's fine. There's like Japanese short rows, German short rows, this short row that I've been talking about here where I don't even bother to pick up the wrap. It's totally up to you what you do with that. It will only very slightly change the overall look of your pattern, so it's really not worth worrying about. And I did make sure on that chart that I marked those with a blue square. So if you are looking at this chart, it's important to print the chart in color. The rest of it you can print in black and white, but it's important to print the chart in color so that you can see where I've put my stitch markers. And I go ahead and I put stitch markers in to denote the edging so that I know when I've hit my edging, and I put my stitch markers in with my regular repeats so that as I go across, it's easier for me to count. I do not put stitch markers in the section that has the wraps and turns. And the reason I do that is so that I don't get as confused about what I'm doing. But stitch markers are really important for this particular pattern. I love stitch markers when it comes to lace. It really helps me to keep track of what I'm doing. It helps me to make sure that I haven't missed a yarn over, or I haven't missed a decrease, and I catch it faster. I find that if I'm using stitch markers, that I am more successful with my patterns, especially my lace patterns, right away. So that's something to keep in mind, is stitch markers are your friend. And it doesn't matter if it's locking stitch markers, or if it's fancy stitch markers, or if it's, I like these little textured ones that we sell at BlackSheep. They're very inexpensive. These are great. If you look these up on the BlackSheep Fiber Emporium website, let's see if I can, there we go. Let's see if I can get the texture to show up. Come on, focus on my finger. No. Yeah, this is awesome. Nice and textured. Those sit really nicely, and inexpensive. So if you lose one, it's not as big a deal. I think we sell a dozen for like $2. They're very, very inexpensive. Nice little stitch markers. But I also like fancy stitch markers, so sometimes I just put bunches of fancy stitch markers in because that's what makes me happy. So if that's what makes you happy, that's what you should do. You can also use things like a little bit of floss. You can use like actual dental floss, or you can use embroidery floss. You can use little loops of yarn from other projects, leftovers. You know, that's a great use for tails, is making just little yarn loops for throwing in as stitch markers. So that's also an option. Let's see, what else do I need to talk to you about? Make sure that you have at least scanned through your pattern a little bit. When I write patterns, I try really hard to give you an idea of what's coming in the pattern in that little introduction that I write. So like I talk about how there's short rows and triple yarn overs and an eyelet edging, so that you have an idea of what to expect. I also try to give you an idea of difficulty, so you can always check the difficulty level. Most of my patterns are rated for adventurous novices. If you've got knits and purls down, then you can learn as you go with the rest of it. Don't be afraid to rip back. It's okay to rip back or tink, frog. In knitting, I do that a lot. I do that a lot. Anyway, does anyone have questions about like substituting yarns, or you have a yarn that you'd like to use and you aren't sure if you can? Do you want me to cast on now and we can talk about the long tail or twisted German cast on. I can show you how to do that again. Maybe? Anybody there? No? I haven't talked for very long today. What else can I tell you? Oh, Slow Yarn Crawl is still on. Slow Yarn Crawl is totally on while I wait to see if there's any comments. And we still have 35 shops that are participating. And hey, it's a summer full of fun. Don't forget to get your passport. We have people that are being entered for prizes because you have to have your passport to be entered for the prizes. We have this 2020 SYC Experience Challenge, which you can enter on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, just all kinds of fun stuff going on. And there's so many gorgeous patterns this year. I think there's like 53 maybe patterns from all the shops. So most of them did do a crochet pattern as well, which is fabulous. Good job, shops. I'm trying to think what else. There's just so much. There's so many things going on. And, you know, it's a summer full of crafting. If you were with me on Wednesday when I talked about spinning last week, I finished, let me grab them. I finished both bobbins of singles. Okay, grabbed them. I had to hide my spinning wheel in my closet so that Ina would stop playing with it. So I finished both of my bobbins of singles, and now I can ply these together. So maybe Wednesday, I'll show you my progress a little bit on the Elroy shawl, and then maybe I'll show you how to ply a little bit. That could be fun. What do you think? Maybe? Sort of? I don't know. Anyway, I'm very excited that I got those finished, even with my bum finger, and I'm not going to unwrap this because it's not pretty. But I sliced my finger very nicely right here when I was cutting vegetables, and now it's been, I don't know, like 10 days, and I change this Band-Aid about once a day. I need to change it again today. And I've discovered that I can spin, but I can't use this finger, so I have to pinch with my middle finger, which makes it weird. I can tat, but I have to tat really slow. I was trying out this new Eliza yarn, or Elisa, I don't know which one it is, from Handy Hands, because I wanted to test it. So I was trying out a little tatted butterfly here. Just a little easy tatted butterfly. And I discovered that because I have to pinch, it's really hard to tat. So there won't be any tatting for me for a little while until that finger heals, because it puts way too much strain on my finger. I can knit very easily. Purling is a little bit harder because of how I hold my needle. Because when I go in and I'm purling, I always hold my needle kind of like this, and I purl with my thumb. So that's a little bit tougher, but it can be done. I'm just a little bit slower than usual. And I've been sewing all weekend on a quilt top for my niece because, and I really hope that Caitlin's not watching this. Caitlin, don't watch this. You heard nothing. So I'm working on a quilt top for my niece, and I'm apparently terrible at math because I was pretty sure that I had plenty of 9-patch squares, and so I started putting my quilt top together and sewing and discovered that I really do not have anywhere near enough 9-patch squares. So I stopped, and I have to reevaluate. I have more fabric coming that I can mix in, and I didn't use all of my fabric, so I can go back and cut more. But I didn't feel very smart. Like, I'd been sitting there and I was all excited because I'm like, yay, I have enough like strips and I have enough squares and I can get started putting this together. And I did like 6 rows maybe, or almost 6 rows out of 12, and then discovered that I did not have enough 9-patch blocks. And so yeah, that's not going as well as I was hoping. But I have fabric coming. And I can get that all sewn together hopefully soon. And I can sew with my bum finger much better than I can do anything else except knit. So yeah, it's just all kinds of fun. Let's see, squash bugs have invaded my garden again. So I've got the squash bugs. The deer ate so much of my poor pepper plants that they are sad and they're struggling to produce, but not I have a rodent as well. I don't know which kind, but I have a rodent of some sort that decided to come in and eat all of my okra plants that the deer did not eat. So it has been just like a really crazy wildlife-filled summer here for me in Missouri. We have a bunch of snakes. We have seen more snakes this year than we have seen any other year here. Fewer frogs, which is probably because there's more snakes. What else have I got going on? I had a possum in the barn that I had to trap. That was fun. Of course, I had the deer in the garden. Canada geese. I've had so many Canada geese. I had like a dozen of them or more that were here the other day. There's just wildlife everywhere. It's just everywhere, man. It's awful. And I live in the country, and I expect wildlife. I expect some wildlife, but I feel like this has been the year of the wildlife invasion at my house. So it's kind of crazy. Anyway, does anybody have questions about the knit-along? I still don't see any questions. So if you don't, then I'm going to close by saying make sure you check out the clearance section on the website because we've got some really good deals going on. We're clearing out a bunch of the superwash worsted, and we're clearing out a bunch of yarn that we just can't get anymore for one reason or another. And, you know, we're bringing new yarn in, which is why the old yarn needs to go. So we've got some really fabulous prices on that. My book is 25% off, and we have some other books on sale as well. And in addition to that, you can start making appointments to go see the new space at Tina's and shop there if you happen to be local. If you're not, send Tina a message, and I'm sure she would be happy to give you a little video tour of some of the fun stuff that we have. I'm sure she could make a little video and link that out. So anyway, Wednesday we will see how far I've made it on my Elroy shawl, and I will show you all how to do a little dab of plying, and hopefully we can be back on the deck or maybe downstairs, but we might be back in the house because I think it's still supposed to be pretty hot. So anyway, stay safe, stay healthy, keep crafting, take care of yourselves. You know, if you have questions or you need some help or there's something that you would really like me to demonstrate, just leave me a message in the comments or send me an email. Right now I'll be doing the KAL, the knit along, for the next couple of weeks, and then I am probably going to be gone the 20th through the 24th, which is when the IOLI Unconvention is. But I'm planning to visit a friend and do a bunch of quilting for the week with Ina. So unless something changes, if something changes, then I'll be back here like normal. But right now, that's the plan. So the next 2 weeks, I'll be on here doing videos, and then I'm taking a little break, and then I'll be back again. So just, you know, put that in your calendar if you are watching these videos. And like I said, stay safe, take care of yourself, you know, keep crafting. And don't forget, we have that big clearance sale going on. Tina has some t-shirt knit-alongs that she's doing, and she's finishing up the Ben Goulben Shrug knit-along. So make sure that you are checking those out as well. As always, there's more information at our BlackSheepFiberEmporium.com website. And if there's something that you really want me to demonstrate or teach, then please let me know in the comments or send me an email. My email is Kelly, K-E-L-L-I, @BlackSheep, A-T-O-R-E-N-C-O, @Orenco.com. And remember, that's the old shop name. Now we're Black Sheep Fiber Emporium. So, because we're also not in Orenco anymore. So, very important. I will see you guys on Wednesday for, again, a little update on where I am with the Elroy Knit Along. And I would love to see where you are. So if you are joining me, then, you know, send me a photo or link me through Facebook or Instagram so that I can check it out. And I'll also show you a little bit of plying. So I'll see you then. Bye.